I want to do today in class. So let's get started. This is my best friend, my roommate, and my co-teacher, Bridget. So she'll be demonstrating the whole class. You can always look up and see her pose if you get lost, and I'll just be behind the camera talking. All right, let's go. All right, so for the first pose, there's going to be quite a bit of setup for this one. So just sit comfortably and look towards your screen. I'm going to show the variation first. The pose that I'll teach for the majority of class will be lying down on your belly. But if for any reason lying down on your belly is uncomfortable or it's just inaccessible today, this will be where you go. So that's what Bridget's going to demo first. So you'll have a bolster or a couple of pillows, and it will just be vertical on your mat. You'll take another blanket and place it over the top as a pillow. And then you'll just lie right in front of the bolster, drape your upper body over, and pull the pillow down so it's just grazing the tops of your shoulders, and rest your head. And then you can extend your legs straight, and then let them be soft out to the sides, and rest your hands. So if you don't want to lie on your belly, that's where you'll come first. Okay, and now for everybody else, you're going to need your bolster and 2 blankets. So the bolster will go at the top of your mat, but it will be horizontal. And then you'll take one of your blankets and tri-fold it. So you can watch Bridget if you're confused about what that looks like. She's just making a long, thin channel with her blanket. And that will go towards the middle of your mat, also horizontal. And then the last blanket, you'll roll all the way up. And then that roll will go on the lower third of your mat or towards the end. So I'll let you all set that up first, and then you can turn towards the screen again and watch Bridget get into the pose. But I'll give you a minute or so. I know it's a lot of folding and rolling.
Yoga laundry.
Okay, so now you can glance towards Bridget. She's going to come down over her props so that the folded blanket is right beneath her pelvis. Her ankles are on top of her blanket roll. And then she's moving the bolster so that it supports her forehead and her forearms. Bridget, go ahead and move the bolster a little bit further away from you. There you go. So you can really let your shoulders come down. So all of us have different proportions. Bridget has a nice long torso, but if yours is shorter like mine, you might have to adjust the distance between your props. Good. And then let yourself go. Let yourself be heavy. So hopefully with your arms up on your support, you can start to feel this stretch along your armpit chest and your upper chest. And maybe you can feel that space in your upper back from the base of your neck to about the middle part of your shoulder blades, moving in towards the floor. If you've been coming to these restorative classes the last couple of weeks, we've started all of the classes in a chest opener. I was having you all roll over a blanket roll so it lifted your chest. And I wanted to do something different today that still gave you that opening of the chest, but that had you face down. And really, because this morning I went to do pranayama, I went to lie over that same blanket roll with my belly towards the ceiling. And I was just not feeling it this morning. I was feeling quite anxious and didn't want to be there. I really wanted to be on my belly. And so as Vicky said this morning in class, she said, I teach from my practice and I hope that it resonates with my students. And that's really what I think all of us do as yoga teachers. So this morning I wanted to lie on my belly, and I thought that that would be a good place to start in class. So really let yourself go, let yourself be heavy. And then especially focus on your abdomen, on the skin that's touching the floor. I often say to soften the belly when you're in poses, and I think that's easy to do when you have some feedback, when you have something pressing against your belly. So see if you can soften the belly away from the floor. So that's not sucking the belly towards the spine, but instead releasing all muscular effort so that the body feels like it's receding naturally. And if you're lying on your back, it might be helpful to cover yourself with a blanket so that you can give yourself that same feedback. Really learning how to soften your belly. And then, as I said last week, you can just notice without judging if there's any resistance to just lying here that's starting to come up, any feeling of tension, or maybe thinking about other things that you should or could be doing. And I invite you to just take this time to welcome yourself here. Give yourself permission to let go for the next hour. All of your responsibilities will be here at the end. But this hour is for you. So hearing the sound of the singing bowl, let that bring you a little bit closer to the periphery of your being, knowing that we're going to move into a different pose now. You can take your hands off of the bolster, place them on either side of your chest, and press yourself up. And then you can just come off of your props and have a seat. Look towards Bridget and she'll show the next pose. If you were lying on your back for that one, yeah, I'll have Bridget show it really quickly. So Bridget's just going to show that variation first again. So if you're choosing to lie on your back, you'll take the same shape. But this time, as you extend both of your legs, you'll then pull your right leg in to the groin. The foot comes towards the groin, and then you'll grab for another blanket and support your knee. So even if the knee comes down to the floor, I'd like you to support it today. Right underneath the hip. Okay, so that's the variation. If you are okay on your belly today, we're going to use the same props that we did for the last pose, but in a slightly different configuration. Good, so Bridget's going to take her bolster out to the side of her mat and have it vertical along one of the sides. Yep, that one's fine. She's going to lie on her belly with her ankles on the roll again. Yeah. She's lying down her pelvis on the blanket and then resting her forehead on her hands. Okay, so now she's going to have to lift her upper body up so that she can bend her right knee and place her knee and thigh on the bolster. So I'm just going to help her get into this a little bit. So I want you to watch carefully because you'll have to get yourself in. So the bolster is pretty close to her body. Her knee is on the bolster, but it's moving away from the hip. So it's below the hip. It's not coming up towards her shoulder. And then her leg is supported by this bolster, her whole leg. She's resting her upper body, resting her forehead. And then on this back leg, and this is very important, you want the back leg to be internally rotating. So you can't see Bridget's foot, but she's on the outside of her foot. Her toes are pointing to the opposite leg. And I'm just going to use my hands to help Bridget internally rotate that thigh. You could have a partner do this later. But I want you to see if you can get that same internal rotation on your own so the thigh is moving in towards the body. Okay, so you can go ahead and come down. I know that one's a little difficult to get into, but we'll stay for some time. Yes, the blanket is still under the hips. You do want to be careful that the blanket isn't preventing the bolster from getting close to the body. So if you have to shift the blanket so that it's coming more on the opposite side of the body so that you have that space for the bolster, then please do so. The bolster should be pretty close to you. And then just check in with your knee and make sure that it's below the hip. So the direction is from the inner groin all the way down the inner thigh to the knee. And then make sure that your back leg is internally rotating, that the toes are pointed towards the leg that's up on the bolster. So as you get situated in the shape, see if you can invite a little bit of action in. So reaching from the inner groin of the leg that's lifted out through the knee, as if the knee was moving away from the body. And this is the same action that we take in Vrikshasana tree pose in a more active place. So staying soft in your upper body and in your breath, you might decide to take a few breaths with that action, reaching from the inner groin out through the knee. And then after a few breaths, just letting that effort go and resting here. This pose is really healing for the SI joint. That's why we have that slope of the hips. It presses the tip of the SI joint in. But it can also be aggravating if we don't set up very carefully. So that's why there's a lot of instruction to get into the pose, especially with that back leg. Let yourself soften again. Again, using the floor as feedback, letting the belly release away from the floor into the spine through no effort of your own, but actually the release of effort. Soft, slow breaths. If you are lying over the bolster, face up, you can just straighten both of your legs, take a few breaths with your legs straight, and then switch and pull the opposite foot into the groin and support with a blanket. If you're lying on your belly, you can straighten the leg that's on the support, bring it down by the other, and then very slowly press yourself up, being careful to not tweak anything, remain gentle with yourself as you transition, and we'll come into the same pose on the opposite side. So if you need to shift your blanket that's underneath the pelvis so that it doesn't get in the way of the bolster, then please do so. And then you can lie over your props. Blanket roll underneath the ankles, folded blanket under the pelvis. And then the other leg up on your support, taking care to pull the bolster or blankets or pillows very close to the body. And then placing your knee and making sure that it's below the level of your hip. And then go ahead and come down, rest your forehead on stacked hands. Same thing with the back leg. Internally rotate the back leg. It's much easier to have someone do it for you. I definitely encourage you to try this with a partner. But you can do it yourself. So make sure that the toes of your straight leg are pointed towards the lifted leg. And the hip internally rotates. And then again, if you would like to take a more active approach for a few breaths, see if you can extend through your lifted leg from the inner groin along the inner seam of the thigh and out through the knee so that the knee moves away and down. And this isn't an aggressive movement, but there is some action there, some direction. And then after a few breaths of asserting that effort, you can release completely. Give the weight of your body to the floor. See if you can resist the temptation to fidget or adjust, especially in a pose like this where there's quite a bit of setup. We do the best we can the first time we learn it, sometimes the 20th time we learn it. But eventually the adjusting comes to an end and you just have to be in your pose. You just have to accept how it is, how it feels today. And then you let yourself feel. Take about 1 more minute here. you're lying back over the bolster, you can straighten your bent leg. And then if you're lying on your belly, also straighten your bent leg. And then use your hands to gently push yourself up. You can move the blanket that was under your pelvis off to the side. Going to take child's pose next. So the big toes are together, the knees are wide. Going to take that blanket roll and place it on top of your ankles, underneath your buttocks. And then your bolster is horizontal. So Bridget's going to fold forward, rest her forehead on the bolster, and extend her arms straight. The whole time her arms will be nice and active, reaching out the fingers, resting the forehead, and then resting the buttocks down on your support. So the bolster is just about under Bridget's elbows. Really reach through your hands. Don't let your hands be limp here. Extend your arms. Feel that same spot as you did at the beginning of class, your upper back from the base of your neck to the middle of your shoulder blades. Let that sink in towards the floor. My teacher always says, action without tension, relaxation without dullness. So even in a restorative class where the goal is really to find this deep relaxation, that doesn't mean that there is no effort at all. But instead, we look at these more restful poses like child's pose and see if we can invite a little more life in, some more awareness. And then we might look at some more challenging poses and see where we can invite more softness. So see if you can set that effort in your arms, in your hands, and then move away with your awareness from that effort. Turn towards the places of deep rest. Feel the support underneath your forehead. And feel your hips moving back towards the support on your heels. Allow the rest of your body to give its weight to the props and to the floor. And then soften the belly. Good. Okay, bend your elbows. Place your hands on the bolster. Press yourself up. We're going to use the same props, but now you'll turn the bolster so that it's vertical. Just glance at Bridget. She's coming to downward facing dog. She'll place her on either bolster. Her heels will go on that blanket roll as she presses herself up, and the crown of her head rests on her support. So depending on what you have for a bolster or a makeshift bolster, and also your proportions, the crown of your head might not reach. So if you have things available, see what you can add so that you really get that support. Don't cheat yourself out of the pose. If there's nothing you can do to create that support, then that's okay. We'll make do for today. Let your head be heavy. But if you can, really see if you can get that pressure. This is really where the restoration comes in downward facing dog, is when we can give ourselves the pressure on the crown of the head. As if you were in headstand, so the chin is really moving towards the chest. And then reach through your hands, lift your hips way up to the ceiling. Feel the extension along the sides of the body. And let the heels have their support. And then soften your belly. See if you can be present with whatever discomfort you're feeling. And maybe even laugh a little bit to yourself. Watch how the tension first comes to the face. That's the first place for most of us. And before that tension spreads to the rest of the body, see if you can get rid of it right away by inviting a smile. Good. Okay, come on down to your knees. You're just going to take your knees wide, big toes together, pull the bolster in between your legs. Now it's vertical. And rest forward, child's pose. You can rest one cheek down. And if you found that blanket roll on your ankles very helpful in the last child's pose, you can go ahead and bring that in again. But it's not necessary if your hips go down to your heels on their own. And then again, soften the belly. Maybe now you appreciate this complete letting go a little bit more. There's a sweetness that comes when we release after a more effortful pose. So really give yourself over to the props. And I know part of what I really miss about in-person classes is the physical touch. It's getting and giving adjustments. So I'm going to talk you through what I would love to do for each of you. So imagine that somebody's hands were gently pressing on your lower back, guiding the hips more deeply onto the heels. You can let your hips soften, imagining that you're getting that gentle pressure. And then after, usually I would take my hands along the sides of the spine and gently push the muscles on either side of the spine away from the center line. So as you breathe here, as you exhale, see if you can imagine all of the muscles that go along the sides of the spine, softening away from the center. If your head has been turned to one side the whole time, go ahead and switch to rest on the opposite cheek. Stay present with yourself. Your mind starts to wander towards the future or maybe towards the recent or distant past. See if you can bring yourself back. Give yourself permission to be here. saw a quote from Mr. Iyengar today, and it said, if you can stand on your mat for yoga and you have available at least 15 minutes, you are a truly lucky person. That alone is a priceless gift and a tool to help improve your life, which not many have. With these thoughts, have a sense of gratitude for what is available to you and get to practice. Okay, slowly bring your hands to either side of the bolster and press yourself up. And then just have a comfortable seat so you can look towards Bridget. The next pose we're taking is Janu Shirshasana. So Bridget's going to sit on her mat with her bolster and blankets nearby. Can you turn the other way? Yes, thank you. She'll extend both of her legs out straight and then pull her right foot into her groin. If when you do this, your knee is way up in the air, you can support the knee with a blanket, but if not, if the knee doesn't need it, then that's fine as well. So in the traditional pose, the other leg is extended straight out from the hip. Today, I'm going to ask you to take that straight leg and move it further out to the left, so to whichever side it's on, so that you're taking this wider stance with your legs. And then she'll take her bolster, place it right in the middle of her leg, so it's splitting the difference, and then a blanket. And that will be folded as if it were a pillow on the top of her bolster. And then she'll fold forward, rest her forehead, and cross her arms and rest them as well. And like anything that needs support, if that's not enough for you, then please build yourself whatever you need. Build the floor up to you. The leg that's extended straight has some action. So lift that kneecap, let the toes point straight up to the ceiling. Keep that leg working. Good. Yeah, Annabelle has a chair that's really awesome. If the bolster is too low, instead of just letting yourself hang forward, having something to support yourself is really beneficial. So a chair is wonderful for that. Like one of the poses earlier in class, is taking a shape that's very similar to tree pose, to Vrikshasana. So see if you can extend from the inner groin out through the knee. And maybe you hold that effort in extension for a few breaths. And then you let it go and let yourself soften. There are some systems of yoga that have you do these quiet poses with no props, and there's a lot of hanging forward. I personally believe that the body releases more effectively when it feels more safe. And I think that we show the body that it's safe by giving it something to release into. So I know it's difficult at home without a studio full of props, but I appreciate you all really taking care of yourselves. Thank you. Okay, we're going to switch to the other side. So being as gentle with yourself as you can come off of your support and move it just enough so that you can switch your legs. So the opposite leg will pull in, supporting the knee if you need to, and then take your straight leg out wide. So it's not as wide as you can make it, but just slightly wider than straight ahead. And then pull your support back in and drape your body over your support, really resting your forehead. And then keep that straight leg active. Lift the knee, flex the toes. And then reach through your bent knee, inner groin, along the inner seam of your thigh and out the knee. Patricia Walden, who's a senior Iyengar yoga teacher, has a quote. She says, "Do, doing, done, receive." When we really follow those steps in a pose, at first we are doing a lot. We get the general shape, but then we're fidgeting, adjusting our props, adjusting our body, trying to get comfortable. And then at some point, we have to be done. We have to accept what it feels like today. It's not always the most comfortable. And then we receive. And we don't get to choose what we receive. It comes to us as emotions or thoughts, sometimes judgments, whether they're good or bad. So see if you can allow yourself to receive whatever's bubbling up without attaching yourself too strongly to any of it. Let yourself be soft so that those things that come up just wash over you. Doing yoga, I think, is a very courageous act. It's a choice to engage consciously with who you are today. So be brave enough to accept whatever comes up. Let yourself be soft. Good. Okay, slowly press yourself up. You're going to take both legs wide, Upavishta Konasana. Support comes into the groin just as before, and then drape your body over the bolster. Taking as much support as you need using a chair, stack of blankets. Give your body something to release into. And then see if you can retain some awareness in the legs, some semblance of effort. You don't have to have the world's straightest legs today, but see if you can keep the kneecaps at least slightly lifted. And then soften the belly again. Hopefully you have some feedback here as well, some gentle pressure on the belly. See if you can let the belly soften away from the pressure without sucking or holding in. How soft can you make your belly? We store a lot of stress in the belly. And whether or not we feel consciously stressed out right now, we are living in a stressful time. There is some stress in the collective. So hold your ground, hold the shape that you're in, but be soft there. Go ahead and bring your hands down by your sides, press yourself up. Move the bolster away, bring your legs together. The next pose we're going to do is called Bharad Vajasana, and you'll just need a bolster or whatever you're using as such. So you can watch Bridget. She's going to sit with her hip right up against the bolster. My goal is always to get Bridget so relaxed that she forgets the next pose. So I think I did it today. So the bolster will go right up against the side of your hip. And then her feet are off to the other side. So in this case, her right foot is pointing straight back. And then her left foot, the top of it, is right nestled in that arch. So move them even further away from your buttocks, Bridge, towards the other end of the mat. There you go. Okay, now she'll take her fingertips, tent them on either side of the bolster. Inhale to lift her chest. And then as she exhales, she's just going to drape herself over the bolster and do the right side of down. If it feels okay on your neck, you can turn your head to look away from your knees. But only if that feels safe on your neck. If it starts to strain it at all, then you can turn towards your knees. And then you'll let yourself go. So I realized that I showed on Bridget with the bolster at her left hip, but I didn't really specify. So you can be on either side. It doesn't really matter. And let yourself go. Soften your face. Since we might all be on different sides, I'll have to say this carefully. You should feel that one side of your chest is a little bit lighter than the other, that one doesn't come quite as far down. If you would like, you can bring your hands down by your chest, press yourself up, just your upper body, and then reach that light side of the chest down more as you drape yourself over again. So we're just increasing that twist slightly if it feels invited in your body. And then again, letting yourself decide how to have your head. If you look away from your knees, the stretch will be more intensified on the neck. And that can be very therapeutic for the neck. But if it doesn't feel safe, then just look towards your knees. Okay, we're going to come up and switch sides. So very slowly bring your hands down by your chest, press yourself up. And then you can just swivel your hips over. So we're coming to the other side. Make sure that the top foot is nestled into the arch of the bottom. And then tent your fingertips on either side of the bolster. Lift your chest and drape yourself forward. And then let your head rest, again, deciding if you'd like to turn towards or away your knees. And then let yourself go. You don't have to try to hold your feet in the position that they were when you started. You can let them move organically. If they come away from the buttocks, that's totally fine. Follow your breath. Let the rhythm of your breath take you into a softer place physically, and maybe a deeper place mentally. Let your thoughts go. If you'd like to deepen your twist on this side, just as you did on the last, you can press into your hands and reach the lighter side of your chest down first. as you drape yourself over again. Okay, go ahead and use your hands to press yourself all the way up. Move your bolster off to the side. I'm going to switch things up a little, Bridge, in the interest of time. So we're just going to use 2 blankets for the last pose. I'm going to have you take one and fold it in half the long way. So Bridget will hold it up to show you what that looks like. You're making a slightly wider channel than you did at the beginning of class. And that's going to go vertical on your mat. And then you'll take another blanket and fold it as a pillow for your head. That'll go on top of your blanket channel. Bridget's going to lie over that and have the bolster underneath her knees. This will be how we take Shavasana today. So you have some support underneath the knees. You'll sit in front of your blanket channel and then drape yourself over. Let your head come to your pillow. Again, she'll pull it in so it's just grazing the tops of the shoulders, lengthening her lower back, and then she'll rest. This is our last pose tonight, so really let yourself go. We did a lot of forward folding actions, some twisting. This is really the first time that we've just laid belly up with the chest open. So really let yourself go here. Maybe you can just feel and appreciate how the breath is a bit more free in this shape. And without forcing the breath or changing it, you can let it be how it is naturally. Maybe as you watch the breath, it will start to lengthen a little bit on its own, and you can allow that to happen. Relax the face, relax your jaw, especially soften the belly. Give yourself to the floor. I'm just going to end class with a short chapter from one of my favorite books. It's called Consolations by David White. This is the chapter on courage. Courage is a word that tempts us to think outwardly, to run bravely against opposing fire, to do something under besieging circumstance, and perhaps above all, to be seen to do it in public, to show courage, to be celebrated in story, rewarded with medals, given the accolade. But a look at its linguistic origins is to look in a more interior direction, towards its original template, the heart. Courage is the measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with each other, with community, with a work or a future. To be courageous is not necessarily to go anywhere or to do anything, except to make conscious those things we already feel deeply, and then to live through the unending vulnerabilities of those consequences. To be courageous is to seat our feelings deeply in the body and in the world. To live up to and into the necessities of relationships that often already exist, with things we already care deeply about, with a person, a future, a possibility in society, or with an unknown that begs us on and always has begged us on. To be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. The French philosopher Camus used to tell himself quietly to live to the point of tears. Not as a call for maudlin sentimentality, but as an invitation to the deep privilege of belonging, and the way belonging affects us, shapes us, and breaks our heart at a fundamental level. It is a fundamental dynamic of human incarnation to be moved by what we feel, as if surprised by the actuality and privilege of love and affection and its possible loss. Courage is what love looks like when tested by the simple everyday necessities of being alive. Letting the sound of the bowl start to bring you a bit closer to the edges of your being. Maybe taking a few deeper breaths or wiggling the fingers and toes. Preparing yourself for movement. And then as you feel ready, you can make your way onto your side, pressing your support away from you if it's in the way, and staying on your side for another breath or two, really letting the belly go. And then keeping this softness of belly through the rest of your evening, you can go ahead and press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seat. So we can end class all together. If you would like, you can bring the palms of your hands together, the thumbs press into the sternum, the chest lifts to the thumbs. Deep inhale. Exhale, bow your head. In gratitude for this practice and an acknowledgement of yourself as your own best teacher. Namaste. Namaste.